Welcome to Right Hope. My name's Jenny. Just as we start our service today, a little bit of housekeeping. Can I ask you to make sure your mobiles are either off or on silent mode, please? Please also note our exit today is from the doors over this side. There's also toilets down there if you need them. You have a service sheet which outlines our service today, but importantly holds some beautiful pictures that Spencer has taken and also of Spencer. Refreshments after our service here at the chapel today are at Peter and Julie's, and the address is on the back of the service sheet. And would you please notice also, in lieu of flowers for today, there is a call for donations to something that was dear and close to Spencer, which was the Stroke Foundation. On behalf of Spencer's family, thank you for coming together today for this difficult but important day. Thank you especially to those who've travelled some considerable distance to be here, and also those who join us today remotely, as we say in these times, where they couldn't travel to be here due to COVID and other issues. Welcome to you all. Well, we come together today as people who've loved, cared for and known Spencer. A husband, a father, a grandfather and great-grandfather, part of a larger and extended family, a friend, and a resident in his last home in Anglican Care's Kilpatrick Court. We've come together today to mourn him leaving us and those he loved, to farewell him, to comfort each other. But we've also come together today to do something that is important to us as we remember him. We want to celebrate his long life and his place in this world, which has been left a better place, a better world for his being part of it and for us knowing him. So I'd like to start our time together today with a time of thanks and celebration for Spencer by affirming what we all know and believe. Life is valuable, it's a wonderful thing, it's a treasure to be honoured and appreciated and hopefully lived with joy and peace and happiness and love. Spencer's life, which we celebrate today, has been lived as gifts, as strengths, as passions, as commitment and love, which he offered over many years, particularly to his family, but also to many other people that he met, including me. All of what he brought to us in his life and through his relationship with us still lies within our own hearts. It travels into our future with us, in our stories and our memories. I hope we can see how our lives are better and happier because we've had the privilege of knowing Spencer and of him being part of our lives. Well, some of the words we might want to say today about the things that were iconic about Spencer are hard to put together at short notice for a time like today. And the truth is we can never capture or appreciate the breadth of Spencer's long and full life in a short time together here today. But we'll try to remember and reminisce through some of the stories and pictures of his journey of life, moments that were happy and memorable for him and to us. And these glimpses and moments are precious snapshots. And I'll start with a eulogy of his life that Peter has written for today. Peter writes, "Good morning and a warm welcome to everyone on this sad occasion. And thank you for coming to celebrate a life lived well. Spencer Vinerace Vale was born in Sydney on the 28th of September 1924 at his grandmother's house in Eastwood. It was normal practice to travel to the family home as there was no facility or assistance in Mannering Park at that time. Spencer was soon joined by his sister Daphne and later by brother John. All three children grew up in what at the time was a very remote location. No services at all, a real bush upbringing. Although it was a tough life, the practical skills that were acquired were remarkable. All three children obtained an understanding of life that these days most never achieve. Qualities such as empathy, compassion, mateship, loyalty, determination, generosity, common sense, and the idea of just getting on with it, no matter what the obstacles. And all of this done in a quiet, understanding way. I never heard a raised voice in my childhood or since. Dad never attended school, apart from a couple of weeks when he was around 10 or 11 years old. But this did not stop him from many life successes. Homeschooling by Dad's mum Grace was by all accounts a bit hit and miss. Apparently time for schooling often coincided with sailing out into Lake Macquarie on a skiff and disappearing for most of the day. Grandma was not impressed. Dad married Lola Robinson in February 1950. At that time, Dad was driving a taxi, as well as fishing and boat building back in Mannering Park. Together they decided to go into a shop business at the entrance in 1953. The business had a shaky start. Things were tough. But through sound ability, teamwork, and hard work, it eventually flourished. Unfortunately, ill health forced the sale of the business in 1969. Dad, after 3 months in hospital, was told that he'd never work again and would require a back brace for the rest of his life. He rejected that idea and just got on with it. He started building model boats around 1970 and continued his passion for photography, which began in the late 1950s. As a photographer, he shone. Experimental, nature, portraits and landscapes were produced consistently. Dad also held positions of president and vice president of the Entrance Camera Club over many years and was extremely active in the club, of which he is a life member. All of his innovative ideas he shared with all, and he never craved credit for them. A number of his photos have been shown overseas and numerous awards won. This passion lasted all his life, and some examples are of course on display today. Importantly, many friendships were made and are still intact today. So back to just getting on with it. He took the back brace off in 1970 and he never wore it again. In the early 1970s, Dad started driving school buses. Then at the same time started up a camera shop in Long Jetty. With the help of Mum, he was able to run both jobs successfully and simultaneously. Also at this time, 2 grandsons came on the scene. Evan Vinrace Vale was born in September 1975 and Ben Vinrace Vale in July 1977. In typical fashion, my wife Julie was welcomed at the very beginning, 1971, as the daughter that they'd never had, and our family unit was a very happy one. The 2 grandsons, Evan married Caroline and Ben married Lisa, expanding the small family, and more recently, great-grandchildren Cody and Madeline have come into the fold. Dad finished work in the 1980s, mid-1980s, as a full-time bus driver, and he began travelling with Mum in their various caravans. They travelled solo, but also with Dad's sister Daphne and husband Bruce, and long-time friends Ted and Pat Baker. There were also many trips to brother John and wife Heather in Queensland, which Dad always enjoyed. Mum fell ill on a caravan trip to WA and never fully recovered. Dad has been her constant companion ever since. looking after her at home for 8 years until 2004, when she entered a nursing home facility. Remarkably, she is still with us. Dad was a devoted husband, father, grandfather and great-grandfather to Cody and Maddie. As a friend, he also had no equal. I invite you to take a few moments to reflect on your relationship with Dad, and thank you once again for coming today. And Peter wanted to specifically note that some friends and relatives couldn't make it today. Ben and Lisa are in Melbourne, but we know your thoughts are with us. Dell and Marilyn in WA, and Ted Baker as well. I have a few words also from Evan Vale, one of Spencer's grandsons, who's written, Spencer Vale has two grandchildren, my brother Ben and myself, who knew him simply as Pop, and two great-grandchildren, Cody and Maddie, who knew him as Old Pop. Pop was a true gentleman and literally a gentle man, which all that knew him would undoubtedly agree. Growing up, Ben and I would go to stay with Nan and Pop at their house in Swaddling Street, Long Jetty, in the school holidays. For me, the days were spent helping Pop in his darkroom, doing photographic enlargements for most of the camera shops on the Central Coast. Days would start with a leisurely breakfast, always with Special K, toast, and at least a cup and a half of tea. Morning tea would be called with fresh baked goods, which were always plentiful, with Nan always having something cooking, and more tea. Lunch would usually be a meat salad, followed by a cup of tea. Of course, afternoon tea was a biscuit and tea. I don't remember ever having tea with dinner, but there was always a cup of tea with supper not long before bed. I'm surprised we ever slept with all that tea. But it may explain why Pop was so industrious. A man who retired from driving buses and within a few weeks had a home business operating, doing what he enjoyed so much, photography. I was very lucky to be able to share this with him, and it gave us a lot of time to talk about his other loves, primarily travel and cars. Two things which have rubbed off on me and subsequently to his great-grandchildren. The Vales are definitely travellers, that is for sure. And cars always play a big role in getting to where we are travelling, even more so with a caravan or camper in tow, or even a handmade specialised canopy on a ute. I observed Pop conduct business and produce quality products for the camera shops over a number of years. There was no request that he would not attempt and take on with professionalism and diligence, regardless of how silly it seemed. I remember a lady wanting an enlargement of her family wedding photo, but with the groom removed. I thought it was very amusing at the time, especially as the groom was in the middle of the photo, surrounded by other family members, but Pop managed to do it. This was no mean feat in the pre-digital age. The other thing we used to do in the darkroom while we were waiting for some photographic process to occur was mental arithmetic. Pop was incredible at complicated calculations in his head and would take great delight in trying to stump me with some long problem. Most were about time and speed calculations, and he seemed to enjoy making me do long division in my head. I can remember doing a particularly long calculation after a long time in the darkroom and losing my bearings and falling over. In hindsight, maybe I was overdue for a cup of tea. because I certainly felt better after having one, which unsurprisingly was the prescribed remedy. I was very lucky to be able to share one last cup with Pop not long before he passed, and we talked about travel and cars, which was no great surprise. His legacy will live on in all that we do and how we conduct ourselves. However, I will miss not being able to discuss our latest adventure with him, and more often than not, discover he and Nan had already been to some four-wheel drive only location in his venerable old two-wheel drive VN Commodore years ago. An amazing man and a great legacy. The family have asked at this point if anybody here would like to come forward to share a memory or some words to help us to remember and celebrate Spencer's life today. Please don't be scared.
Hello, my name's David Spratt. I'm from the Entrance Camera Club. I'm the current Vice President, and all those times when Spen was either the President or the Vice President, I was either the President or the Vice President. So we shared quite a few years together. I've known Spencer since the mid-70s when I purchased his camera shop from him and carried on his business for about 9 years. Spen is in fact the second oldest member of our camera club, which is now well in excess of 60 years on. He was the second person currently still in the club to join, second only to Ted Baker. And I really do say it's a great shame that Ted couldn't be here with us today to celebrate. They were long time friends for sure. I speak on behalf, I hope I do, of all of the photographic community which spreads right across New South Wales and Australia. People from our State Federation of Camera Clubs and our APS Camera Club Association, which is our Australian governing body, and all of those people knew Spen and will miss him greatly. Anthony is going to pass on to the Federation and to the APS a memorial that he's set up, and we're hoping that the Federation will honour Spen by letting the rest of the Camera Club movement know. There were people in the photographic community. Alan Hinchell is a long-time friend. Alan came to the club on numerous occasions, knew Spen very well, and sent his apology today, saying that it was unfortunate. He would have loved to have been able to have been here to farewell his friend, but couldn't quite make it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a great honour to be able to speak just for a few words about our old mate Spen. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Well, I'd like to add just a few words of my own. I first met Spencer and Lola at Anglican Care's Kerry Bay Nursing Home 3 years ago, and I was pleased that I could keep up with them in their move to Kilpatrick Court last year as I worked there also. Spencer's extraordinary love and faithfulness to Lola was always apparent to everyone, such as in his daily times and sometimes vigils with her when she was really ill. His friendly, happy nature has endeared him to staff and residents alike. And I think that his just get on with it attitude kept him going strongly right up to his last days. Well, Spencer not only had a love but a great gift, obviously, in photography. In a time well before smartphones, digital corrections and enhancements that made photography available to mere mortals like me, Spencer used a wonderful gift and great skill to capture the beauty of life and the world. We have some pictures today, besides what's printed and on the screen. that are samples of his works in his collection that he prepared and exhibited. Well, just as we welcome and celebrate people who come into our lives, we unfortunately also must say goodbye to those who leave us. As we come to the end of our time here today, we come to a time to say farewell to Spencer. And this may be difficult, but the memories we've talked about here, the time we spent together today supporting each other, and everything we will continue to share will give us comfort. So Spencer, we celebrate and give thanks for your life, a life we affirm was well lived and is well remembered. The ripples of your journey of life are like the ripples of a boat. They have and will continue to travel across the world, even though you've left us. Go with our peace and love. We commit your body to the earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Rest in the hearts and minds of all you love and all who love you. Well, we've remembered and honoured and celebrated Spencer's life today, and we've said our goodbyes. So now let us go from here to Peter and Julie's to share memories and refreshments. Glad that we've loved and are loved, free to mourn for those like Spencer who've been part of this world and our lives, free to hold each other and our memories gently, joyfully, graciously. And may we all be empowered to live life to its fullness. Please take good care of yourselves and each other. And as you leave, we will exit by the doors over here. And as noted before, please note the request that in lieu of flowers, a donation be made to Stroke Foundation. Thank you for coming.